Hello and welcome to the Courage Your Frights. My name is Sean, and today we're going to be talking about the brand new movie Jurassic World Dominion. So, this is the third film in the Jurassic World franchise and the sixth overall film in the Jurassic Park franchise. This is directed by Colin Trevorrow and stars Sam Neill, Jeff Goldblum, Laura Dern, Chris Pratt, and Bryce Dallas Howard. So it kind of combines both the original cast as well as the new Jurassic World cast. And it's kind of been advertised as the end all of the entire franchise. So how does it stack up to the other six? And is this a satisfying conclusion to the six-part saga? So is it a satisfying conclusion? I would say not really. I do have a lot of problems with this film, and we'll get into that. First, I guess we'll talk about my personal experience with the franchise. Jurassic Park was actually the first movie I ever saw in theaters when I was just 5 years old. So I've always had a strong affinity towards the Jurassic Park franchise as a whole. I've always loved dinosaurs and like Godzilla and other things like that. So I'm a huge fan of the series. I've followed throughout since the very beginning. And the previous Jurassic Park film, Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom, I felt was the weakest of the entire franchise. Now, as for this one, I like it a little bit better than Fallen Kingdom. And I know the reviews out there for this have been largely negative, and I understand that. But seeing the original trio together with the new characters, I thought was really cool. And even though it could have been better done, I feel like the acting is good. The characters are great. I love all of the characters in this. I didn't really have a problem with any specific character in the movie. So there wasn't anybody who was super annoying like the last one. Fallen Kingdom had a few characters I didn't care for. This one, I liked all the characters. I just don't like the story that much. It focuses way too much on a non-dinosaur plot line in a movie about dinosaurs, which is a little weird. But yeah, we'll talk about that. There's mainly two main settings. There is a biosyn lab in Italy and kind of black market in Malta that's like a side quest. So there's two big plots. You have Ellie Sattler, who's investigating these sort of locust attacks, and this is the main antagonist of the film is some kind of bioengineered locusts, which is the problem I mentioned earlier. Like, if you're going to make a movie about dinosaurs, make it about dinosaurs, not bugs. But somebody has created these locusts that attack crops, but they only attack certain crops and not like GMO crops that are made by Biosyn. Biosyn being a rival corporation of InGen, the company that created Jurassic Park. And that's pretty much the plot of the whole movie, is they're trying to discover where these locusts come from, how to stop them. And that is pretty much the original trio's plotline, because Ellie's investigating that. If you recall, she's a paleobotanist, so her field is plants. So, of course, she's studying the crop damage. And she got a contact from Ian Malcolm, who apparently has been working at the Biosyn place as a professor. And he's kind of like an inside man. He's getting the scoop on what's going on with the locusts. And then he told Ellie about it and told her to come and meet him at the Biosyn headquarters. And before she leaves, she meets with Alan Grant and kind of drags him along. So it's like Jurassic Park 3. Alan's always getting dragged into these situations against his will. And so that's their storyline. And then the new character's storyline, which is Claire and Owen primarily, they're living in a cabin out in the woods with Maisie, who is the clone girl from Fallen Kingdom. And Biosyn wants her too, because there's something about her genetics that they could use for whatever their experiment, their plot line. And so some stuff happens, and Biosyn hires like some poachers or some mercenaries or something to capture her. And also Blue, the raptor that Owen raised, has a child of her own named Beta, and they capture Beta as well, because Beta is essentially a clone of Blue, just like Maisie was a clone of Charlotte Lockwood. So they need the genetics of both of them for something to do with the locusts. Kind of a convoluted storyline. And you find out later on that Dr. Wu, who was the chief geneticist from the very beginning, was the one behind the locust plague, but he's very guilty about it, and he's trying to put a stop to it, while the head of Biosyn is trying to push forward and continue the destruction of the world's crops for reasons. Biosyn basically has become the umbrella corporation from Resident Evil. So they're very much kind of evil corporation for the sake of being evil. And the head of that corporation, they had to bring up some character from the past, because these films always do. And so they went back and looked to see who was still alive, I guess. And they dragged in Lewis Dodson from the original film, the character that's barely in the original film. But for some reason, instead of making him this agent guy, which is what he was originally, now all of a sudden he is a John Hammond style like CEO who's basically a copy of Apple CEO. So he's pretty much just evil CEO man. And for some reason, they thought bringing Dodson back would matter.
Dodson, we've got Dodson here. See, nobody cares.
But I don't think anybody cares. This could have been generic evil CEO man. There's no reason why it has to be Dodson, but okay, here we are. And so Maisie gets kidnapped, Beta gets kidnapped, and of course Owen and Claire go after them. They eventually follow them to Malta, where they find a black market ring where they're selling dinosaurs and stuff illegally, and it turns into this big chase scene. This is when they unleash the Atrociraptors, which is a new species of raptor. And this is in the trailer. All the big action beats are in the trailer, pretty much. The Atrociraptors follow the same dumb thing the Indoraptor had, which I had a huge problem with in Fallen Kingdom. The whole thing where you have to like point a laser at a target, and then the raptor will go after the target. If only there was an easier way to use laser sights to kill someone, but you know, whatever, you have to have a dinosaur involved. So they have laser pointers that they point at people, and then the Atrociraptors will attack them. But sometimes they point the laser at somebody and the Atrociraptor's not even looking at them, and somehow the Atrociraptor knows that the target's been painted. That's interesting. But anyway, it turns into a big chase scene. It's kind of ridiculous, but it's pretty cool at the same time. It's like Mission Impossible or Fast and the Furious meets Jurassic Park, I guess. So it's a big chase scene in an exotic city, but with dinosaurs. So there's that. And then the original cast is more like infiltrating the base and sneaking around and doing all that kind of stuff. And eventually Owen and Clara, they meet up with a contact. They get on a plane, and then they go to the Biosyn place in Italy as well. And then eventually the whole team meets up. And this is where we get some really cool interactions between the new cast and the old cast. And even though the plot is very uneven, I really enjoyed seeing the original characters, and I also love seeing the new characters as well. So that interaction is really neat. I will say that. And there's a lot of dinosaurs in this movie. They don't necessarily do much, but there's a lot of dinosaurs. Like, I think there's the most species of dinosaurs in this film than any other. We get Giganotosaurus is the main antagonist, I guess, but doesn't do much. He's there for a cool kind of Dino Crisis scene where he attacks the main characters. And then there's a big fight with the T-Rex at the end, but it feels like a retread of the Indominus Rex fight, but much worse. And there was a hilarious interview with Colin Trevorrow and some other guys that kind of, they made some wild accusation, like wild comparison that the Giganotosaurus was like the Joker from Batman, but he's just a big dinosaur. Like, if you're gonna make that comparison, the Indominus Rex was much more like the Joker, I guess, whatever that means. But it's just there. I mean, it's fine. The Therizinosaurus is another cool new dinosaur. For some reason, it's blind, and they play it up as this hyper aggressive dinosaur, but they do show it eating plants. But yeah, the Therizinosaurus was interesting because it's sort of like a dinosaur version of a ground sloth. It's got these big, long, like Freddy Krueger claws, and they made it very territorial, like a bear almost. But it was a plant eater, so it doesn't necessarily mean it's not aggressive, but it's kind of odd to make it almost predatory in nature. But they do. And then for some reason, it shows up and fights the Giganotosaurus at the end, along with the T-Rex. Because the T-Rex, for some reason, must have, I don't know, like 100 charisma points or something, because the T-Rex always seems to get help. The first movie, it was the Raptors, Blue, and Owen, and now this one, the Therizinosaurus, for some reason, comes in and helps the T-Rex. So I don't know why. Something about that T-Rex. People just love that T-Rex. And there's a cool scene in a cave with a bunch of Dimetrodons, which is neat. So now the Dimetrodon has always been part of the toy line for Jurassic Park, but has never been in any of the movies until now. So that was kind of neat. They have it coming up out of the water, and you see the sail, and I think they do that to try to trick audiences to think it's the Spinosaurus, and it's actually Dimetrodons, but there's a bunch of them. The Dilophosaurus comes back, which was exciting. I always loved the Dilophosaurus. That's a fan favorite from the first movie, and then we never saw it again, other than a hologram in the first Jurassic World, and that's back. There's actually a lot of them. There's like a pack of Dilophosaurs in this. And then there's a bunch of like little dinosaur cameos. You get an Allosaurus, you get a Carnotaurus, you get baby Carnotaurus, baby Baryonyx, like all that kind of stuff in the Malta sequence. So lots and lots and lots of dinosaurs, but they don't necessarily have much to do in the storyline. The main story is still about the locusts for whatever reason. Henry Wu is back, but it's weird because now we have a kind of defeated, apologetic Wu, whereas in the previous two films they were kind of setting him up to be like this big bad guy, and now he's not. Now he's a good guy again. So there's that kind of kills the buildup of the character that's been in the previous two films, and then for some reason it's all about evil Dotson, who wasn't even a part of the previous two films. So I don't know why they decided to do that. It's a weird choice, but whatever. So as you can see, the film's kind of a mixed bag. It's got some cool stuff. It's got cool visuals. It's great seeing the original cast and the new cast. The characters are all decent. The story is weird, but it's not quite as disjointed as Fallen Kingdom. Fallen Kingdom's like two movies meshed together, because there's like the first part on the island and the second part in the mansion, which turns into like Dino Crisis for some reason. This one, the two stories are interwoven throughout the entire film, so doesn't feel as disjointed. And then when they meet together, it makes a bit more sense. So I would say, like I said before, I like this better than Fallen Kingdom. And like Jeff Goldblum was in Fallen Kingdom, but barely. He was in like a 5-minute sequence, if that, at a Senate hearing. Here he's actually like a main character. All the original cast members are treated as core cast members in this film, which is cool and not something that's often done in these like nostalgia bait films. Like a lot of times the original cast gets thrown to the side and then it's all about the new people. This one blends the two together pretty seamlessly. So as a rating to wrap this up, I'm going to give Jurassic World Dominion a 6 out of 10. It's not great, but it's not totally garbage. There's a lot of cool sequences that can be taken from this film. Kids especially may enjoy this. It's actually not as violent as some of the previous ones, which is a little weird, but makes it more accessible to a wider audience, I guess. And one other problem is Fallen Kingdom kind of sets this film up as being the movie that's going to have dinosaurs all over the world and they have to interact with humans and all that kind of stuff. And it does that a little bit, but not nearly as much as you think it would. There's the Malta sequence. There's the biosyn stuff is self-contained in a valley. So it's almost like Jurassic Park again. So there isn't really that much integration between mankind and our normal ecosystem and the dinosaurs until the very end of the movie. The very beginning of the movie does it, and then the very end of the movie does it. And we get some callbacks to Lost World. We get some callbacks to the first Jurassic Park, all that kind of stuff. Stuff you expect from these type of nostalgia films, these soft reboots. But yeah, overall, I'm going to have to give this a 6 out of 10. It's above average, but not by much. But I could see this being a very popular summer blockbuster film. It's kind of just a popcorn movie, something to see to take your mind off of things. So I would recommend checking out in theaters if you can, especially if you're a fan of Jurassic Park and these characters. It's good to see them back, even if it's kind of a lackluster performance, but what can I say? So that's going to be it for my first reactions and first thoughts on Jurassic World Dominion. Hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, thanks for watching. See ya.